There you go. Okay, so hello everyone. Thank you everyone for joining. Today we have a very special guest. So Kseniia is a marketing expert. She has over a decade of experience across both Web 2 and Web 3. Since 2020, she has been leading marketing at many different projects such as Anchor, Polkadex, and Premium Finance. And she also advising early stage startups. And she's actually mentored some accelerators here at Outlier Ventures. So KOLs are very important, as you guys know, and now the market is picking back up. So there's no more great timing to learn about important KOL management. Obviously, it's not just working with random people. So there's a right way to do it, and there's a lot of mistakes that can be avoided. So she's going to give you kind of a very in-depth breakdown. Take notes, ask questions at the end. She's a great resource, so learn as much as you can, and that will help your project a lot. So yeah, welcome, and feel free to take the stage.
Thank you so much for such an intro, Tiago. I'm going to share my screen and start with a presentation, but as Tiago has mentioned, especially for you as early stage founders, it's super important to build a community, and building the community comes with a big chunk of like doing this through key opinion leaders in different forms and shapes. And my goal today is to kind of go deeper into what KOLs actually are, because I feel like there's a lot of stigma and a lot of misconceptions around KOL. It almost became kind of like a swear word in Web3, which I'm completely against. And I think KOLs can be a great resource if you know how to work with them. So let's start actually with what are key opinion leaders. So KOL or a key opinion leader is anyone, any person who has built a community. So essentially you are looking, you don't have to look at the numbers. So you don't have to look at the size of the community that this person has built, because recent trends, which we're going to discuss later on in the presentation, are working with nano KOLs or micro KOLs. So people who are having even less than 1,000 followers maybe, but building an organic community around them and attracting people who are sticking around for their expertise and hearing about their experience. So to start with, why would you want to work with KOLs? There are multiple factors, and I try to bundle everything in the growth flywheel to show you how KOLs can foster anything that you do across brand, community, growth, and product. So to start with a brand, you have to find the KOLs that help you build trust and credibility. This is especially important for early stage startups, as you are kind of most of you, I would imagine, would be the new players in the market, and you have to have somebody on your side who will help you to build this initial trust so that you can start building your community based on some values. Then KOLs are very helpful to build a community, as I mentioned, because they can help you to drive engagement, and they can help you to promote different activities that you are implementing for your community growth. Also, KOLs enhance the project's visibility, and through that, you can get more growth and more product usage as well. So KOLs are a great way to accelerate adoption and onboarding. Think of working with KOLs for different techniques, like let's say showcasing how KOLs are using your product, doing referral codes, or anything of this sort. That is not just building the foundations and brand awareness, but also showing that they are the users of your product. And in this way, it looks more authentic. So who should not be your KOL? Because I think it's very important to understand not just who you should work, but to start with like who you should not work and why KOLs became actually a very gray area in Web3 marketing. So initially when marketers started working in Web3, KOLs used to be crypto promoters and used to be shillers. So anyone who has huge accounts and who is building their audience based on like sheer volume. Now, as we are in my view, the industry is evolving and we're having more structured approach to marketing as well. Crypto promoters and shillers are no-go because it's just simply a waste of your money and a waste of your time. You would be much better off working with completely different type of KOLs. So who can be your KOL? The KOLs that you would want to go for are the ones who are helping you to build trust and the ones who are spreading the word about your product. So essentially, what I try to when I try to search for KOLs for the projects that I'm working with, I'm trying to see who the community is and basically view the KOLs as kind of the extension of your team and the extension of your community. So essentially, they need to have the same vibe. Let's say if your community is very tech savvy, or if your product is very complicated, you need to search for someone who can be, let's say, a crypto researcher, gem hunter, or a threador. So essentially, anyone who can help you to educate your community and to drive more awareness through explaining the product and how it benefits the end users. Then if you're doing your projects in DeFi, it's obviously traders and liquidity providers, especially they're very helpful in terms of user onboarding and in terms of showcasing the product and work. Also, angel investors and developers who are building their influence on Twitter, let's say, are also considered as KOLs, at least in my view, because basically anyone who is an opinion leader can be a KOL. And also more traditional KOLs are podcasters and newsletter writers who are spreading the word about different projects. How to find your KOLs? So when you're searching for KOLs, I think this is one of the most puzzling things, because if you work in Web 2, and I would imagine some of you had experience creating their startups at Web 2 or working at Web 2 technology companies, and the processes in marketing in general, and especially in working with influencers, are much more, I would say, easy and sophisticated at the same time than what we are doing in Web3. The challenge in Web3 is that we almost don't have any platforms that help you to weed out and sort the KOLs. So in Web3, when you're searching for your influencers, there's probably going to be a lot of manual work involved. So it's always a puzzling question, like how to find your KOLs. So what I always suggest is that you should try different ways. You should check different platforms. First of all, I start with a social media research and trying to find KOLs for different keywords, like from simply typing it on Twitter search bar. Let's say you're interested in liquid restaking. You would type liquid restaking and see who is talking about it, see who is opinionated, who has the following, and so on. Then community feedback, because I think your community in general is a great source of everything you could do in marketing. I view community in general as the starting point and the end point of any activities that you do. I would say not just for marketing, but in general in the life of your project. So be it your product feedback, your roadmap, be it your marketing, community is a great source of information and guidance for like where you would like to take your next steps. Then there are some influencer databases, and there are some platforms in Web3 analytics now that are trying to recreate the experience of Web 2 in Web 3. For example, Cookie 3 are doing a lot of great work in terms of Web 3 influencer analytics and trying to make it more systemized and more strategized. And last but not the least, I would imagine that a lot of you have been building maybe like in public or even building in stealth, but a lot of you would already have some number of community members. So some of those community members would be KOLs. They would have their own following. They would be very vocal on social media. So try to see who already interacted with your project Or who do you know in your network? Because this is the easiest point of starting out with KOL journey. Then moving on to how to choose the right KOLs. So when you've done your research, obviously you need to weed out the KOLs that you've come across. There are multiple factors to pay attention to. First of all, it's relevance. Basically, as I mentioned before, try to do a health check. Can they be part of your community? Do you see them having the same values? Do you see them being interested in the same things as you as a founder are personally interested in, and the same values that you are trying to build your community around? Also, it's important to see, do they speak the same language? Because it might be that they're having the same goals, but let's say your project is tailoring to institutionals and the KOL is talking in a very degen tone. It's not 100% cases that it's not going to be a match, but I would say like it's better to find KOLs that are able to speak the same language, because at the end of the day, they're going to be your public representatives. And finally, with a lot of projects that I worked with, some of our KOLs with whom we've been working on a long-term basis were viewed by the community as part of the team. So they didn't even realize that we're basically paying to those KOLs to create this content. They were thinking that these are people who are inside the team and who are like builders. So it's very important that the KOL has exactly the same vibe as your team has. Also, take a look at the content. Does the content that they create resonate with you? And here we're talking about multiple things. Are those topics interesting for you and in your community? Again, is the language resonating with what you want to build? And just in general, are they relevant to what you are trying to create and the vibe you are trying to go for? In general, the content that KOLs are posting, it has to be catchy, right? Because in case it's not catchy, people are just not going to stick around. And probably if you find the content that they're posting not interesting, there can be two things. Either it's that this KOL does not resonate with you and with the audience and the community you're trying to build, or the numbers that you're seeing on Twitter might be heavily inflated for KOLs. Then look at authority. And authority, interestingly, doesn't have anything to do with the numbers that this KOL has. So all the vanity metrics as the number of followers, number of likes, shares, retweets, it doesn't matter at all. I would say what the Twitter algorithm is prioritizing now is bookmarks. So I view this as like one of the strongest metrics to vet your KOLs for if you're going for like sheer numbers. But at the same time, try to do manual background check and try to see how connected is that KOL in a particular niche or like an ecosystem you're working with, let's say some certain network that you're building on, or let's say you're doing options in DeFi. Try to see how many connections this KOL has in this network. And it means both him or her or them following different people who are influential and being in the know of what's happening in your respective niche, and also how many influential followers do they have. So how many people who have an opinion and who are also considered as KOLs are interacting with the content of the KOL you are planning to go for. Also, it's very important to check for authenticity. So basically, we're all trying to be authentic, and this is how KOLs and anyone else in the field can build their personal brand. So people want to resonate with the opinion that the KOL is having. And in my opinion, the only way to build this is to go through being your authentic self. So not just copying the narratives that are hot right now, but actually providing your own take. So try to see whether they're influenced by trends or whether they share their own opinions no matter what. Also, try to check the engagement. I mentioned that the numbers don't have that much value, but at the same time, numbers will, if the KOL is being relevant, creating great content, has authority, has authenticity, it's going to be eventually reflected in the numbers. Just don't try not to go just on the numbers basis, but still pay attention on how relevant this person is. In working with KOLs in Web3 especially, there are multiple challenges, but for each challenge, I think you can kind of easily find a solution. So the main challenge is finding authentic KOLs, and especially it poses a big difficulty when you're working in some niche category. Let's say one of my long-term projects that I was working with is Premium Finance, and we were doing on-chain options trading. So options trading is a super niche, super narrative kind of thing in DeFi. And there were not so many options traders to start with. So it was very complicated to find somebody who is a KOL in this respective category and who can actually provide value to our community, who can educate them, who can use the product and showcase how they're using their product. Finally, what I learned quite recently, because I've been working with Orca for the past half a year, Solana is one of the challenging networks in terms of finding KOLs, because somehow it feels like there are a lot of KOLs who are focusing on Solana tokens, but there are not so many KOLs that are focusing on Solana ecosystem projects for some reason. But interestingly, project founders have kind of substituted the KOLs and like taken this spot. So in some networks, like Solana exactly, founders and founder-led communications are substituting the KOL marketing. And basically you can go around this by partnering with different protocols and doing co-marketing with them versus working with KOLs directly. Then there is another type of challenge connected to direct work with KOLs, because this is always challenging to understand how to work with them. There are two ways around this. It's either creating clear agreements, not either, it's like both, creating clear agreements to start with. So basically, think that KOLs are humans, right? Whenever you interact with people, you have to be very clear about what you actually want and how do you view success, what do you want as the final result, what would make you happy, and what would make you think that this is a successful collaboration. So the clearer you are from the beginning, the more pitfalls you can avoid, and the better the result of this interaction is going to be. With different KOLs, it's going to be completely different things. So let's say with one KOL, they will be happy to have assignments from you, to have like certain number of posts or certain activities that you're expecting them to do. With other KOLs, they would want more freedom. And I would say my advice here is always try to work with KOLs that actually not the ones who want the clear tasks from you, but the ones who are more, responsible for their work in a way, because they know their community better and they know what resonates with their community. So for example, you might want them to create 10 posts in a month about you, but they know that their community will see it as inauthentic way of communicating, because they usually do a completely different thing. And this is why they became famous and they became valuable for their community. So try to be clear about your expectations, but at the same time, give them some freedom to create the content in the way that you're used to. And always monitor their activity, especially if you're working with KOLs on a long-term basis. It's important to do those health checks and try to see whether you are actually having the results that you want, whether you are actually happy for the money that you're paying, like versus the outcome, or you need to do any tweaks, you need to have some discussions with KOLs, or maybe you want to substitute them with someone else or like stop the activity fully. It's also extremely important to measure the ROI, because working with influencers is one of the paid marketing channels. And basically, whenever you pay money for something, especially as early stage startups, you want to have clear ROI. Unfortunately, with KOLs, it's very difficult to have a very direct ROI, and it's very difficult to directly attribute the success of your campaigns just to KOLs, because there are multiple factors that go into your marketing campaign, and KOLs itself, just as a single marketing channel, they would not bring you the results that you are expecting if your narrative is not at par, if your product is not manageable, if you are having issues with different parts of your marketing stack. KOLs are not like a magic pill. They will not magically just like make everything great and attract huge community numbers and user numbers to your platform. What KOLs are, they're basically expanding everything that you have. So as any paid marketing, you need at first to build the foundation through your organic marketing, and then you just do an additional boost through paid marketing, in this case, through working with KOLs. But in terms of measuring the ROI, I think it's extremely important to have the feedback loops, to check both with the KOL, what are they thinking? Is this campaign working? What do they think they need to change? To see how community is reacting, because sometimes you might think that something is going to resonate with your community, but at the end of the day, they're not happy because they know that this KOL usually provides like wrong calls, for example, or anything else of this nature. And I'm always advising my startups to not just do one-off campaigns, which is usually tempting. And this is like the initial response to working with KOLs, but actually trying to build long-term relationships and actually viewing KOLs as the extension of the team, as I mentioned before. So basically, try to I would say the ideal scenario is having 3 to 5 KOLs on rotation and working with them for at least 1 month, and then seeing whether it works or not, testing different theories, measuring, and then basically seeing whether you want to continue with them or you want to tweak something. Moving to different successful KOL strategies. So you would probably categorize the KOL work into 3 buckets. It's working with KOLs for promotion or brand awareness, working with KOLs for product marketing, and working with KOLs for education, which I think I can never stress the educational angle enough, because I think especially in our industry, as it's very complicated, we've grown a lot since even this year. And there is insane amount of information, there is insane amount of different terms. And think about the fact that we're entering the next leg of the bull market. So there are going to be new entrants to the market who are completely fresh to crypto. So you have to educate them, and whoever does education better are usually winning a huge chunk of the market. So in terms of promotional activities, what you can do and what usually works is working with researchers, creating different research pieces in different forms. It can be anything from the newsletter to infographics, to any visual explanation, like let's say video format, to Twitter threads, or even long form posts explaining how your product and how your project work, in the form of deep dives. Same goes for like projects or niche overviews, which a lot of threaders are really good at. And I would say this is one of the ways to attract a lot of attention. Then promotional things include retweets and doing AMAs. For AMAs, I would say that you have to focus on 2 parts. Working with KOLs who are single individuals, who can be influencers or angel investors or podcasters, and also think about AMAs in terms of co-marketing techniques. Because again, a lot of projects in the space have a lot of influence. So let's say if you're working with a project that is way more known than your project in the industry, you will eventually be associated with them. So you can view them as a KOL itself as well. In terms of product marketing, your main goal here is to explain, first of all, how your product works and then showcase in practice how it actually works. So here, what you can try is how-to guides, and they can be in completely different forms, from written format to the video format to even the audio format, if you're able to explain it just in words. There can be live streams where you as a founder are actually showcasing how to, let's say, if you're a DAX, how to trade on your DAX, which is very powerful. And I think here, the main trick is that a lot of founders think that they have to go for something very complicated, very like high quality of the video or high quality of explanation, which in reality is not true. Actually, in most cases, what really resonates with the community is something very casual. Like, let's say you just sitting in front of your screen and showcasing just in the live format, in the same way I'm doing this presentation now, like you are showcasing your platform. So usually those strategies really work, because also as it's coming from the founder or from the KOL, it's kind of like more connection to the product for users. Also, sharing successes is another, I would say, like very easy growth hack that a lot of projects overlook. So what I'm trying to advise the projects that I'm working with, try to build different social sharing functions into your product. Again, if we're talking about DeFi, for example, think that people are receiving yield on your platform. So simply add the sharing button where they can say that I provided XYZ liquidity to this pool, and this is the yield I got. Or even without mentioning the numbers, just like simply stating the fact that they're using your platform. The trick here is also to add the KOLs to the mix. So you want your users to share it, and you want your KOLs also to showcase that they are very present on your platform. Same goes for referral links. Referral links is kind of a tricky thing because in theory, they have to work, and in theory, they have to be lucrative, especially for KOLs, because the way it works is that they share the code, and whoever is jumping through their code and starting to use the product gets some sort of discount, and the KOL has also some monetary perk from that. But with Web3 being kind of a tricky industry, a lot of KOLs are very opposed to referrals because it can be associated with not organic behaviors. So this one is really tricky, but if you can figure out how to incorporate referrals, it can unlock a lot of opportunities for you. Because think that Axie Infinity has grown massively in this way, things that JMX has grown massively in this way. So just if you're able to structure your referral program, try to add KOLs to the mix because it's going to give you a boost. And for education, it can take multiple formats because basically whatever you do can take an educational angle. It can be long form articles, it can be Twitter threads, it can be co-hosting AMAs and not focusing on your project, but basically like discussing the field that you're operating in, or discussing the specifics and providing more education into like the products around your specific niche. And academy style content. I think this is another thing that not so many protocols are using. Majority of protocols are writing a lot of content, but they're almost never structuring it correctly. While content is like the foundation of everything that you're building in marketing, because basically you can start off with content and you can repurpose it for multiple things. With Premier Finance, we've done a very interesting thing. We basically started off explaining what the Web3 options are in a series of articles. And then when I've seen that community was very interested in that, we created a fully fledged options academy that was modeled with the example of Binance Academy in mind. And we've did like a very decentralized spin on it. So invited different collaborators to share their strategies, invited different influential options traders or just traders to provide their take on the option space and like how they use options to like hedge, for example, and also added a lot of co-marketing activities to the academy, providing more engagement and more gamification to everything that we've been doing. So here are some of the examples of activities that we've done with KOLs for Premia. So first of all, I think what was one of the best things that I have done for Premiere, we've found this person who's called Marty, and you can see that he doesn't have that many followers. And initially, when we started working with him, he had maybe less than 5,000 followers. But at the same time, he had a wealth of knowledge. So he's a very opinionated options trader. And basically, what resonated with us straight away was that he tried each and every options protocol that was in the space back then. And also he traded options in TradFi. So he could basically compare and he knew how it should look like in the final output. So we started off initially with testing, working with him in terms of just Twitter activity. And very soon we've seen that community is responding really well to him, like community is asking him questions and basically valuing his opinion as somebody who's very knowledgeable in the space. So then we've asked him to create more educational content for us, but not focus on Premium per se as the product and like not pushing heavily using the protocol, but more like giving our community members more understanding of how to basically explaining them what are the options, how they can excel at their trading with options. So we started off the content series of that went out as a newsletter and was called Monday Alpha. And we had a lot of like funny narratives around this, like alpha is free, but just on Mondays or something of the sort, where Marty was basically explaining how to convert the events of the past 2 weeks on the political scene, on the economical scene, into volatility for traders. So after they read this, they were much more knowledgeable of like understanding how to use options to succeed in their trading strategy. Then we also done the AMA series with Marty, where he was the co-host of the spaces that we've been doing on a bi-weekly basis. And also we tried not to focus on Premia as a product and like not to push the trading angle, but more like have a more organic take on it and have discussions with other influential traders, be it like option traders or justify traders, about like their journey, about their opinions, like where do they see the space moving and so on, which was really interesting because basically we've been working just with Marty directly and like incentivizing him in monetary terms, but at the same time through Marty, because he had a great network and he was, despite the numbers on his Twitter, very influential in his respective niche, we were able to get the guests like Alex Kruger with 500,000 followers on Twitter and one of the top long-term KOLs who came to our options talk completely for free, just simply out of interest and simply because we did a different spin on it when we did not want to push premium. We wanted just to have a chat and hear his opinions. And then, as I mentioned, there are some screenshots of what we've been doing in the academy. We broke it into options 101, which is like the initial content explaining what the options are, strategy part, which was more hands-on and practical, and then master classes given by Marty initially, and then a couple of other traders, and Premia Blue, which was hosting the step-by-step guides on how to use Premia. Then, like taking into account that we've spoke about how to find KOLs, how to vet them, how to start working with them, and what strategies we can use. Obviously, as I mentioned, as KOLs are one of the channels of paid marketing, you want to be sure that you're actually doing it right, and you want to measure the success, and you want to have a clear understanding of return on investment. So basically, as I mentioned before, it's almost impossible to silo the success of your KOL marketing, but at the same time, you can indirectly measure your KOL marketing efforts and see whether they are converting into higher brand awareness, more engagement, increased reach, community and user growth. Some of those things you can measure directly by the numbers. Let's say, like, you will always know whether your marketing efforts in general are paying off if you are having more users on the platform, if you are having more recurring usage of the platform, if you are having more new users, and so on. Same goes with community members. You can see the numbers that you are getting on your Discord. You can see the numbers you're getting on your Twitter. How active are those people? What kind of questions they're asking? Are they actually talking about your protocol on their personal pages? And are they actually spreading the word? So this is what you should pay attention to. And I would say again here, it's important to take a look at the numbers, but it's also important to kind of have the vibe check, because a lot of marketers in the space are jokingly asking the question like, can you measure the vibes? And I think you actually can measure the vibes, but it's going to be a lot of manual work. You just have to be like very observant of how your community is operating and what are the changes in their moods and in the questions they're having. So that's pretty much it. Happy to hear your questions, and thank you so much for listening to me for the past half an hour.
Amazing. Thank you so much. That was super, super insightful. Lots of great advice and context, and also it really helps that you kind of give these specific examples of people you worked in the past, projects that you worked in the past. So yeah, overall, fantastic talk.
Happy to hear that.
Yeah, totally. And everyone, feel free to ask any questions. You can pop them in the chat, or you just like unmute yourself and ask directly. Again, she's a great resource, and if eventually you will need to work with KOLs, like it's almost unavoidable. So we have a KOL expert right here, right now. So any questions, just feel free to pop them.
Yeah, I have one. Thank you so much for the presentation. It was super insightful. I think I don't know, maybe I missed it in the deck, but when it comes to like the budget for KOLs, do you have any ideas? I mean, I know that ideally, and this is what we've been doing, is like you sell people on the value prop and you're building more of a relationship, and it's not like a transaction type of situation. But in the case that it is the case, do you have any insights on that?
Yeah, I did not include it in the deck because budget is always very tricky. I would say, like, not just with KOLs, but in general with anything in the marketing stack. Um, Usually the way it works, like, obviously, the bigger the merrier, right? So let's say if you have opportunity to allocate a lot of budget to paid activities, provided that you have your marketing foundations, that like you have the narrative, that you're doing organic marketing, whatever you inject into paid marketing is going to boost everything else that you are doing. But at the same time, especially as all of you are founders of early stage startups, you don't want to waste money, right? So initially, what I'm always advising to do is try to try to search for KOLs who would be aligned with you and who would want to work on either like the free basis, and they will have some other value from you. Like, let's say they will have the access to the team, they will have the access to information, they can be like early beta testers or anything of this sort. So you incentivize them, you like give them the understanding that they are very valuable for you, but at the same time, you are not necessarily spending money on them. Another way is to incentivize KOLs on the token basis. And I would imagine for a lot of you, as you are launching Web3 products, you will have token as part of your product stack. So giving out tokens virtually costs nothing for you compared to like giving out fiat. So that's another way. But the reality is that there are a lot of KOLs that you would want to go for who would be interested in payments, right? Because for them, this is their job. And I think now the industry is shifting in terms of like when I was starting out 5 years ago, we've been working with KOLs and then like very meticulously checking who sold their allocation straight after the token became available and like vesting started. And we were like basically blacklisting them, saying that they're bad actors. Now I think like the industry is shifting and we're all understanding that KOLs have to earn money and this is the way that they earn money. So bear this in mind. And there are also a lot of KOLs who reached a certain status, who reached a certain following, who would ask for you to like at least do a split between fiat and between tokens. But circling back to the budget, it does not depend on KOLs. It depends on like what you as a project can allocate.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Also, maybe a good thing to cover that I see startups struggle a lot is number one, maybe it's good for you to cover a little bit. Number one, like when do you think startups should start working with KOLs in terms of like stage of development and kind of like how far away they are from TGE, things like that. So the whole timing about it, and then also the logistics of actually reaching out to them, especially when it's bigger KOLs. Like it's not always easy that you can get in touch with them. So any advice for that would probably be helpful.
Great questions. I think in terms of when to start working with KOLs, it's actually an amazing question because what I noticed with a lot of early stage projects, they think of KOLs as the early grail. I've actually like came across projects that were thinking that they don't have to do anything in marketing. They just have to like drop XYZ number of dollars to like KOLs, and all of a sudden they will have crazy brand awareness. In reality, that's not the case because again, KOLs or any paid activity is like simply amplifying all the other efforts you've been doing on marketing. So as I mentioned like multiple times throughout the presentation, you have to have your foundations. So think of it in this way. Like basically, you have to explain what your project and what your product is to KOLs for them to be able to better sell it. So if you are not explaining it right, the KOL it's going to be like a broken phone, right? The KOL is going to convert it and explain it in a wrong way, and then the community will understand it in even a more twisted way. So think that you need to be sure what is your narrative. You need to be sure what are the exact words that you wrap your product into. And you need to be sure that you understand in what way to explain your product, first of all, and like try to be the KOL yourself, because I would say what is interesting about this cycle is that homegrown KOLs, as they're called now, are the new meta. So homegrown KOLs are going to be founders, team members, anyone who is building on your side and who is basically going out to Twitter or like any other platforms and being vocal, just sharing their opinions. So try to do this at first and try to tackle all the foundational parts. So have great website, work on your documentation, work on any educational aspects. So try to create this base for KOLs to take content from, and then jump into KOL marketing. I would say in terms of TGE, what I'm usually advising is to do a lot of organic marketing in the lead up to the TGE and start working with influencers maybe like a month before the launch date. either a month and then the closer you get to your launch date, the more intense you need to basically, you have to speak way more. So the only difference between like your day-to-day marketing and your launch marketing is going to be the intensity and the number of communications you're actually pushing out to the world. To the second question, in terms of how to reach out to KOLs, I think it's also one of the most popular questions. And I think what we're forgetting sometimes is that they're people, right? So in the same way that we spend time on Twitter or like we check our emails, they do exactly the same. Another thing is that they probably have way more communications on a daily basis that most of us are having. So you need to cut through the noise. So I had a very interesting experience with the project I've been working with. It's called Rhea Labs. And initially when I joined, they tried to reach out to KOLs. They reached out to maybe like 30 KOLs, and just one of them came back with an answer. But when I was actually checking like how they've done it, they've done the Twitter DMs, which is perfect way to reach out to KOLs because this is where they hang out if you're going for Twitter KOLs. But at the same time, like they reached out with a very blunt message. It was something like, hi, we're Rhea Labs, we do XYZ, we want to work with you. And there was like no explanation. So I tried to do a different approach. Like, first of all, we shifted the narrative, we made it more interesting and like self-explanatory, and try to create the hook in the message, like basically trying to explain the product in a very concise way, and also trying to explain like why it's going to be interesting for this particular KOL. And the response rate was probably like 25 out of 30. Even though some of them said no, you still want some kind of a response because you want to have an open line of communication. But I think here again, narrative plays a huge part, and like the exact wording that you are having, because we were even able to secure quite a lot of input from angel investors because they simply liked the narrative line. And they basically said that when they read that, they responded straight away because it resonated with what they were searching for. So try to like, it's not about the way itself, because the way it's very simple. You just go directly and you ask whether they're interested or not, but you need to figure out like what is gonna be interesting for them.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you. That was great advice. Does anyone else have any other question that you'd like to ask?
Yeah. One question that comes to mind is around the ideal call to action when it comes to like having KOLs kind of promote or support. I understand sometimes it's more like an educational piece, but I mean, we're at a stage now where for the last year we've been pushing people to our waiting list, and now the beta is finally open. But sometimes we feel like when we push people directly to the beta, it's not yet at a stage where it's easy for them to just understand what they need to do. So we also have documentation that we can push them to. So we kind of have a few different call to actions that we can push people towards. So I'm just curious, like in the context of when we're working with KOLs, what is the ideal one? Is it just like pushing to the website where from there they can also sign up to the beta if they want to? But at the same time, maybe we're adding a step to capture the email, which is kind of the end game. So any thoughts on that?
Can you provide a bit more information? What do you do? Like, what is your product?
Yeah, for sure. So we are essentially building a global payment tool for freelancers. So we're using USDC to send the money, but the experience just remains like a simple experience. Like you don't need any blockchain knowledge. So it's a tool for freelancers to kind of send an invoice and then get paid however their client wants. So it's like a Wise, but specifically for freelancers and using blockchain instead of using the financial system to send the money.
Makes sense. And what is the metric that you're using to measure success?
I mean, up until the launch, it was waiting list numbers, right? So we were at like 1,200 people on the waiting list. And we were also focusing on building the Twitter and the community. From there, we're around like 1,300 people on Twitter as well. But now we need to start converting more people to like the beta as we get ready for fundraising, and get people more through the door. So now the metric is going to be user signups and then transaction volume as well. Yeah.
Interesting. I would think that, you know, especially with financial products,
Mm-hmm.
users want to see the value, right? They want
Mm-hmm.
to, I would say, like with anything, what marketing in Web3 is trying to do is like simplify any concept that you're working with, because we're in the industry where a lot is happening, and like to capture
Mm-hmm.
the attention, the easier the better. So I would say like try working with KOLs who can basically explain to their community, like in a very simple terms, like, you know, before I used this product, this is
Mm-hmm.
what I'm saying. Like, let's say, I might be wrong in terms of my understanding of this, but let's say I was paying this number in fees.
Yeah.
After I started using this product, this
Yeah.
is how it helped me to like save. This is how it helped me
Mm-hmm.
start getting payments faster, or like this is how it helped me to get more payments, for example, or like,
Mm-hmm.
more people across the world. So
Mm-hmm.
anything that's, you know, like I wouldn't even tie it to any like call to action in terms of like here's the link for you, but more
Mm-hmm.
creating this hook that people will read the post and they will be super interested, like, you know, this
Mm-hmm.
person done this, how can I do the same? In the same way that, for example, KOLs that do trading, they're doing this kind of like clickbaity things. Like, you know, last week I had $100.
Mm-hmm.
Now I meme coins, I have 100,000. Here's how I've
Yeah.
done it. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
kind of like the same, but like less clickbaity, if it makes
Mm-hmm.
sense.
Yeah. Yeah. So sell people on the value and not just like give them the an easy access to the call to action, because they won't do that if they don't see the value. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's actually an amazing book by Simon Sinek that is called
Start with why.
Start with Why.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know if have you read it?
I've heard about. I saw the TED talk, but never read the book. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it has like there's a very simple message that he like drags in 200 pages and different examples. But I
Mm-hmm.
think it's actually like it's very simple, but not as many companies are doing this, because we
Mm-hmm.
always try to lead with the product and we're always
Right.
trying to see the features of the product. While
Mm-hmm.
in reality, like our brain is not able to comprehend like what is happening, but we all
Mm-hmm.
like, why am I going
Yeah.
to, like, how will I win, basically?
Mm-hmm.
So I think if you can convert the features into qualities and like
Mm-hmm.
into increasing the making your users better off, this is what really resonates with them.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, amazing. Any last question? Okay. Kseniia, do you want to give some last words, maybe where people can find you and if they want to work with you?
Yeah, definitely. You can find me on LinkedIn or on Twitter. I'm recently more responsive on Twitter as I've been trying to do like homegrown KOL kind of stuff, building my personal brand. But it's very easy to find me. I'm Kseniia Baziian everywhere, just simply my name and my surname. Happy to connect with you and happy to answer any further questions that you have.
Okay, amazing. Thank you so much for your talk. It was excellent. And thank you everyone for attending.
Thanks for inviting and attending.
Thanks a lot.
Cheers.
This was
Have a great
great.
day, everyone.
Bye.